They said she was cursed from birth, a wolf who could never shift, trapped forever in human skin while her true nature clawed desperately from within. But when the Alpha Kings burned into her flesh during that fateful auction, everything the elders had sworn was impossible began to unravel, and the beast they'd tried to bury came roaring to life. The iron cage sat in the center of Ravenshallow's market square like a wound against the cobblestones. Lyra pressed herself against the bakery wall, her basket of herbs forgotten as she watched the crowd gathering around the spectacle. Even from 20 paces away, she could smell the blood, wolf blood, and it made something deep in her chest twist with recognition she couldn't acknowledge. "Another rogue," someone muttered nearby. "Third one this month Lord Aldrich's brought in." Lyra's fingers tightened on the basket handle. Lord Aldrich, the territory's appointed overseer, stood beside the cage with his usual air of superiority, his silk doublet pristine despite the dust swirling through the square. He enjoyed these displays, she knew. Enjoyed, reminding everyone that even wolves could be broken. "Behold," Aldrich called out, his voice carrying across the square. "A lesson in what happens to those who refuse the crown's authority, power. This savage attacked a tax collector on the northern road." The crowd pressed closer, and Lyra found herself moving forward despite her better judgment. Through the gaps between shoulders, she glimpsed the prisoner clearly for the first time, and her breath caught. He was massive, even cramped within the iron bars. Dark hair fell across features that belonged more to ancient bloodlines than common rogues' power. But it was his eyes that made her stomach drop silver like winter moonlight, the mark of an alpha. Not just any alpha, either. Those eyes held power that made even Aldrich's guards shift nervously. "The beast refuses to shift for proper punishment," Aldrich announced, producing a silver-tipped prod from his belt. "But we have ways of encouraging cooperation." The prisoner didn't flinch as Aldrich thrust the prod between the bars, though Lyra saw his jaw tighten when silver met skin. The sizzling sound made her inner wolf keen with sympathy, or would have, if her wolf could do anything more than whisper beneath layers of ancient curses. "Nothing?" Aldrich taunted. "Perhaps you need more encouragement." "Stop." The word escaped Lyra before she could catch it. Every head in the square turned toward her. She recognized many faces, neighbors who bought her healing salves, mothers whose children she'd nursed through fever. Now, they all stared at her with expressions ranging from surprise to suspicion. "Healer Lyra," Aldrich said, his tone dripping condescension. "How unexpected. Do you have business here?" Her mind raced. Speaking against Aldrich was dangerous enough for any human, but for her, someone who carefully hid what she truly was, it could mean exposure. Yet looking at the caged alpha, seeing the quiet dignity he maintained despite everything, she couldn't stay silent. "I'll buy him," she heard herself say. "Whatever his fine, I'll pay it." The square erupted in whispers. Aldrich's expression shifted from amusement to calculation. "Buy him?" He laughed. "This isn't a common thief, girl. This is a rogue alpha. The fine is 50 silver marks." Lyra's heart sank. 50 silver marks was more than she'd earn in a year. But then she remembered the small leather pouch hidden beneath her floorboards, her grandmother's emergency fund, saved over decades. "I accept," she said quietly. The prisoner's silver eyes found hers across the square, and something electric passed between them, recognition of a kind that went deeper than names or faces. For one impossible moment, she could have sworn her dormant wolf stirred, trying desperately to answer a call it couldn't fully hear. The walk to her cottage should have been simple, a matter of collecting the silver from beneath her floorboards and returning to complete the transaction. Instead, Lyra found herself leading a procession of guards through Ravenshallow's narrow streets, the caged Alpha rolling behind them on a prison cart. "This is madness," her neighbor, Thora, whispered as they passed. "You know what Lord Aldrich does to those who defy him." Lyra kept walking, though her hands trembled. She'd lived in Raven's Hollow for 18 years, since she was 5, carefully building her reputation as a healer, never revealing that she was born to the Moon Whisper Pack, or that she carried a curse that trapped her wolf in eternal silence. Her cottage sat at the forest's edge, far enough from town that her occasional screams of pain when the curse flared wouldn't disturb anyone. She disappeared inside, emerging moments later with the leather pouch that represented 3 generations of her family's savings. 50 silver marks, she said, offering it to Aldrich. He weighed it in his palm, his expression calculating. "You realize what you're purchasing, don't you? This isn't some tame dog. He's feral, dangerous." "I understand," Lyra said quietly. "And when he tears your throat out in your sleep..." Aldrich stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Don't expect the town guard to come running." The Alpha growled from his cage, a sound so deep it seemed to vibrate through the earth itself. Aldrich stumbled back, his hand flying to his sword. "Release him," Lyra said, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. Aldrich's jaw clenched, but with half the town watching, he had no choice. He gestured sharply to his guards. "Unlock it." The moment the cage door swung open, the Alpha emerged in one fluid motion. Even in human form, he moved like a predator, all controlled power and lethal grace. The crowd scattered, mothers pulling children behind their skirts, men reaching for whatever weapons they carried. But the Alpha's attention fixed solely on Lyra. Up close, she could see the silver burns crisscrossing his arms, the bruises darkening his ribs. Yet he stood tall, unbowed, those moonlight eyes studying her with an intensity that made her forget to breathe. "Can you walk?" she asked softly. His brow furrowed. When he spoke, his voice was rough from disuse, carrying an accent she didn't recognize. Why? One word, but it held a dozen questions. Why save him? Why spend everything she had? Why risk Aldrich's wrath? "Because someone should," she said simply. Something flickered across his features. Surprise, perhaps, or recognition of a kindness long absent from his world. He inclined his head slightly, a gesture that might have been gratitude or acknowledgement. "This isn't over," Aldrich hissed as they turned to leave. "That savage is your responsibility now. When he shows his true nature, and he will, his crimes become yours." Lyra didn't respond. She simply walked toward her cottage, acutely aware of the Alpha's presence beside her. He moved silently despite his size, though she noticed the slight favor of his left leg, the way his breathing caught when the movement pulled at his injuries. Halfway to her cottage, where the town gave way to forest path, he stopped. His nostrils flared, and he turned toward the tree line with sudden alertness. "We're being watched," he said, his accent thick but understandable. Lyra followed his gaze, but saw only shadows between the trees. "Aldrich's men?" "No." His voice dropped lower. "Wolves." Her heart stammered. "That's impossible. There are no packs in this territory." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she felt exposed in a way that had nothing to do with her simple healer's dress or herbalist's apron. Those silver eyes seemed to see through every carefully constructed lie she'd built around herself. "There are always packs," he said quietly. "Some just hide better than others." The words hit her like physical blows. Did he know? Could he sense what she was or what she was supposed to be? "We should go," she said quickly. "Your wounds need tending." He studied her for another long moment, then nodded. But as they walked the final distance to her cottage, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just changed the course of her life in ways she couldn't yet fathom. The curse that had defined her existence for 18 years suddenly felt less like protection and more like a cage of its own. Lyra's cottage was small but meticulously organized, every surface clean, every herb bundle hung precisely from the rafters. The Alpha stood in her doorway, seeming to fill the entire frame, while she bustled about gathering supplies. "Sit," she instructed, gesturing to a wooden chair by the hearth. "I need to treat those burns before they fester." He remained standing, his gaze tracking her movements with predatory focus. "You're not afraid?" It wasn't a question, but Lyra answered anyway. "Should I be?" Most humans would be. The way he said humans made her stomach tighten. She forced herself to maintain the calm demeanor of a simple healer as she prepared a salve from calendula and honey. "I'm a healer," she said carefully. "I've treated all manner of injuries, wolf attacks included." Something that might have been amusement flickered across his features. "Is that what you think I am? Just another wolf?" Lyra's hands stilled for a moment before she forced them to continue their work. "I think you're someone who needs medical attention. The rest doesn't matter." He finally sat, the chair creaking under his weight. This close, she could smell him properly, pine forest and winter storms. But underneath, something achingly familiar that made her cursed wolf whimper in recognition. "Your name?" she asked, needing the distraction as she began cleaning the silver burns on his arms. "Kale, just Kyle." No pack name, no territory claim. But she knew better. Those silver eyes, that particular quality of power that rolled off him in waves, this was no ordinary rogue. This was an alpha of significant bloodline, possibly even. No, that was impossible. The Alpha King hadn't left the northern citadel in years. "These burns," she said, spreading salve with gentle fingers. "Silver wounds take longer to heal, even for," she caught herself before saying "our kind." "Even for wolves," he finished, watching her intently. "You know much about our healing." "I've studied," she said vaguely. "My grandmother taught me that different beings require different treatments." I. His hand shot out, catching her wrist as she reached for more salve. Not roughly, but firmly enough that she couldn't pull away. Where his skin touched hers, heat blazed, not painful, but electric. "Your grandmother," he said slowly. "Was she also a healer?" "Yes." The word came out breathless. He turned her hand palm up, his thumb tracing across her wrist where her pulse hammered. "Interesting. Your heartbeat is faster than a normal human's. And your scent." Lyra jerked her hand back, the salve jar clattering to the floor. "I don't know what you mean, don't you?" He leaned back in the chair, studying her. "You smell like pack, little healer, buried deep, hidden beneath herbs and human soap. But it's there. Like a wolf who's forgotten how to howl." Panic clawed at her throat. "You're mistaken. I'm just a human who spent 50 silver marks to save a stranger?" His voice was gentle now, almost kind. "Just a healer who happens to know exactly how to treat silver burns, who stands downwind instinctively, who tilts her head in submission without realizing." "Stop." The word emerged as barely a whisper. "How long?" he asked. "How long since you last shifted?" Tears burned her eyes, though she refused to let them fall. "I can't. Won't. Or can't." "Can't." The admission ripped from her throat. I was born wrong. Cursed. My wolf is there but trapped. The pack said I was an abomination, so my grandmother took me away when I was 5, taught me to hide, to pretend, to survive." Silence stretched between them. Then, so quietly she almost missed it, he said, "You're not an abomination. You don't know that. I do. He stood slowly, favoring his injured leg. Because I can feel your wolf, little healer. She's not dead or wrong. She's bound. Someone did this to you. That's impossible. The elders said. The elders lied. His eyes flashed with anger, though she sensed it wasn't directed at her. This is curse work, dark magic, the kind that requires significant power to cast and maintain. Lyra sank into the chair he'd vacated, her legs suddenly unable to support her. You mean someone did this deliberately? To a child? The question, Kale said quietly, is why? What threat did a 5-year-old pose that required such extreme measures? She looked up at him. This mysterious alpha who saw through her carefully constructed human facade in minutes. Who are you really? He was quiet for a long moment, then. Someone who knows what it's like to be bound by circumstances beyond your control. But unlike your chains, little healer, mine are of my own making. The fever struck Kyle 3 days after his arrival, swift and vicious as a summer storm. Lyra found him collapsed by her hearth at dawn, his skin burning hot enough to scald her hands. No, 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 she muttered, dragging him toward her bed with strength born of desperation. The silver poisoning had gone deeper than she'd thought, spreading through his blood like molten metal. His eyes, when they flickered open, were no longer silver but pure gold, the color of an alpha in the grip of wolf madness. He spoke in a language she didn't recognize, ancient words that seemed to pull at something deep in her chest. Stay with me, she pleaded, pressing cool cloths to his forehead. Fight this. But the fever only climbed higher. She tried everything, willow bark, tea, feverfew, even the precious wintermoon flowers she'd been saving. Nothing worked. His wolf was trying to burn the poison out, but it was killing him in the process. By midnight, desperation drove her to try something forbidden. Her grandmother had warned her never to attempt to channel her trapped wolf's energy, said it could shatter the curse in ways that might kill her. But watching Kale writhe in agony, she couldn't stand by. Lyra placed her hands on his chest and reached deep inside herself to where her wolf lay bound. The curse fought her immediately, sending spikes of pain through her skull. But she pushed harder, trying to find even a thread of power to lend him. Kale's eyes snapped open, pure gold and wild. His hand shot up to grip her throat, not choking, but holding. He pulled her down until their faces were inches apart, and she could see the war raging, in those inhuman eyes, man and beast fighting for control. He spoke again in that ancient tongue, words that sounded like prayer and promise combined. Then, faster than thought, he yanked her closer and his teeth found her throat. The bite was deep, primal, claiming. Pain exploded through her body, but underneath it came something else. Power, raw and ancient, flooding through the wound and into her blood. She felt Kale's wolf recognize hers, felt them call to each other across the barrier of her curse. The room filled with golden light, not from any lamp but from their connected bodies. She could feel his heartbeat syncing with hers, his thoughts brushing against her mind like silk against skin. Mine. His wolf declared through the bond, the word transcending language. Yours, her trapped wolf responded, straining against its chains with newfound desperation. Then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. Kale released her and collapsed back onto the bed, the fever breaking in a rush of sweat. The golden glow faded from his eyes, leaving them silver once more, but now filled with horror. What have I done? He whispered, staring at the blood, her blood on his mouth. Lyra pressed her hand to her throat, feeling the deep puncture wounds that marked her as claimed. You were fevered. You didn't mean... I marked you. His voice was hollow with shock. I gave you an Alpha King's mark. The world seemed to tilt. Alpha King? He sat up slowly, his face pale beneath his tan. I didn't. I couldn't tell you. I'm not just any Alpha Lyra. I'm the Alpha King of the Northern Territories. And I just claimed a cursed wolf who can't shift as my mate. Your mate? The word came out strangled. The mark, it's not just a bite. It's a mate bond. Permanent. Unbreakable. It ties your life to mine. Your wolf to mine. He ran his hands through his hair, distress evident in every line of his body. This shouldn't be possible. You can't shift. The bond should have killed you instantly. But Lyra was barely listening. She could feel something happening inside her, something fundamental changing. The curse that had been iron chains around her wolf was suddenly under attack from within. Golden fire eating at the dark magic like acid. Something's wrong, she gasped, doubling over as pain lanced through her spine. Kale reached for her, then pulled back. The mark is trying to break your curse, but your body can't handle the strain. Lyra, I'm so sorry. I've killed you. No. She grabbed his hand, squeezing hard as another wave of pain hit. Not killed, changed. I can feel her, my wolf. She's fighting. Fighting will kill you. A transformation after 18 years of suppression? Your body can't. Then help me, she gasped. You're the Alpha King. Your mark started this. Can't you control it? He looked at her with such anguish that she almost told him to let her die rather than bear that guilt. But then his expression hardened with determination. There might be a way, he said, but it will bind us even deeper. Are you willing to risk that? Lyra thought of 18 years trapped in human skin, of the wolf inside her screaming for freedom, of this mysterious Alpha King who'd seen through her disguise in minutes. I'm willing, she whispered. Kale pulled her into his arms, cradling her against his chest. Then let me lend you my strength, little healer, percent. Let me help your wolf remember how to run. Dawn came with ugly reality. Lyra woke to find Kale standing by her window, fully dressed, his shoulders tense as he watched something outside. They're here, he said quietly. She sat up, immediately regretting the movement as her neck throbbed where his mark lay. The bond between them hummed with his distress, though she didn't yet understand how to interpret the sensations. Who? My guards. My beta. He turned to face her, and she saw the mask of kingship settling over his features. I've been missing for 2 weeks. They've tracked me here. You're leaving. It wasn't a question. I have to. There are protocols, laws. An Alpha King can't simply claim a mate without the pack's approval. Especially not. He stopped himself, but she heard the unspoken words. Especially not a cursed wolf who can't shift. His jaw clenched. That's not what I meant. It's what you were thinking. She pulled the blanket higher, suddenly feeling exposed. I understand. You were fevered. The mark was an accident. I won't hold you to. He crossed to her in 2 strides, kneeling beside the bed and catching her hands. Never say that. The mark may have been unplanned, but my wolf chose you. I chose you. Go. Then why leave? Because Lord Aldrich will return. He's probably already spreading word that you harbored a dangerous rogue. If they discover you, bear the Alpha King's mark while I'm here, it will be seen as treason helping an enemy of the crown. Lyra's blood chilled. The human crown and the wolf territories had been in cold conflict for years, maintaining an uneasy truce that would shatter if they knew the Alpha King had been caged like a common criminal. They'll kill me. No. His grip tightened. Because you're going to hide the mark and pretend I escaped in the night. You helped a stranger, and he betrayed your kindness by running. That's the story. And you? I returned to my territory, smooth over the political damage, find out who orchestrated my capture because this wasn't random. Lyra, Someone wanted me vulnerable and wandering near the human settlements. He pressed his forehead to their joined hands. Give me time to make this right. How long? A month? Maybe 2. The curse is already weakening from my mark, I can feel it through the bond. But if you try to shift before it's fully broken, it could kill you. Promise me you won't try. She wanted to argue, to rage at the unfairness of finally feeling her wolf stir only to be told to suppress it again. But she could feel his genuine fear through their new connection. I promise. He kissed her forehead, the gesture achingly tender. My beta, Theron, will be watching. If you're in danger, go to the forest and call for him. He'll know you by my mark. A knock at the door made them both freeze. That's them, Kale said. He moved to the door, then paused. Lyra, what I said when the fever had me, the ancient words, did you understand them? She shook her head. Something flickered in his eyes, relief, regret? Perhaps that's for the best. He opened the door, and immediately she heard voices speaking in the fluid language of the northern packs. A tall man with scarred features looked past Kale to where Lyra sat, his nostrils flaring as he scented the room. The beta's eyes widened with shock, and he said something sharp in their language. Kale responded with a tone that brooked no argument, and after a tense moment, the scarred man bowed his head. Kale looked back at her one last time. In her mind, through the gossamer thread of their new bond, she felt his wolf calling to hers a promise, a farewell, a claim all rolled into one. Then he was gone, leaving her alone with a mark that burned like a brand, and a wolf that rattled its weakening chains with increasing desperation. The silence lasted only moments before another knock came. Healer Lyra? Lord Aldrich's voice carried through the wood, deceptively pleasant. I believe we need to discuss your missing prisoner. She pressed her hand to her throat, arranging her hair to hide the mark, and prepared to lie for her life. 3 weeks had passed since Kyle's departure, and Lyra was dying. Not quickly, not obviously, but with each passing day, her body fought a war she couldn't win. The Alpha King's mark had indeed weakened her curse, but instead of freeing her wolf, it had created a battleground where neither side could claim victory. She stood at her work table, grinding herbs with trembling hands, when the latest attack hit. Fire raced through her veins as her wolf thrashed against its failing chains. She bit down on a leather strap to muffle her screams, tasting copper as her elongating teeth punctured her lip. The transformations never completed. She would get as far as bones beginning to crack before the curse snapped everything back into place, leaving her gasping and broken on her cottage floor. Healer Lyra? A young voice called from outside. My mother sent me to fetch you. My sister's fever won't break. Lyra forced herself upright, wiping blood from her mouth. Coming, Tam. The boy, barely 8 years old, waited anxiously as she gathered her supplies. She'd become even more essential to Ravenshallow since Kale's escape. Lord Aldrich watched her like a hawk, but he couldn't deny her skill with healing. They walked through the evening streets, Lyra fighting to keep her gait steady. The wolf was restless tonight, more than usual. She could feel it pacing, searching, calling for its mate through a bond stretched thin by distance. Soon she told it silently. He promised. But promises meant little when her body was tearing itself apart. At Tam's cottage, she found his sister burning with fever, delirious, and calling for water. Lyra worked with practiced efficiency, brewing willow bark tea, applying cool compresses, all while ignoring the way her hands shook. She'll be fine, she assured the grateful mother. Keep giving her this tea every 4 hours. Walking home, she sensed them before she saw them, wolves in the shadows beyond the town borders. Not threatening, just watching. Theron, Kale's beta, keeping his promise to guard her. She wanted to call out, to beg for news, but Aldrich had spies everywhere. Any sign of communication with the wolf territories would mean her death. The next attack came at midnight, so violent it threw her from her bed. This time, she made it further. Fur sprouted along her arms, her spine elongated, her face began to shift into a muzzle. For one glorious moment, she thought the curse had finally broken. Then it snapped back with vicious force, and she heard her own ribs crack from the reversal. She lay on the floor, sobbing and bleeding, when she felt it, a pulse through the mate bond, stronger than ever before. Kale's presence flooded her mind, his wolf calling desperately to hers. Hold on. She felt more than heard. I'm coming. But coming wasn't enough anymore. Her body was failing, the constant half-transformations destroying her from within. She'd hidden it well, using her healing knowledge to mask the symptoms, but she knew the truth. She had perhaps days, maybe a week at most. A knock at her door made her freeze. At this hour, it could only mean trouble. Open up, healer. Lord Aldrich's voice was cold with authority. She struggled to her feet, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders to hide the blood on her nightdress. When she opened the door, Aldrich stood there with 4 guards, his expression triumphant. Going somewhere? She managed to keep her voice steady. I've had word from the capital, he said, pushing past her into the cottage. Strange word, about a certain Alpha King who went missing 2 months ago. Curious timing, wouldn't you say? I wouldn't know anything about that. Wouldn't you? He moved closer, and she forced herself not to retreat. They say he was captured by someone using specialized silver weapons. Weapons that went missing from my armory around the same time. Are you accusing me of theft, my lord? I'm accusing you of far more than that. His hand shot out, gripping her chin and forcing her head up. You helped him escape, didn't you? The Alpha King himself. Before she could deny it, his other hand yanked her hair aside, revealing her neck. His eyes widened at the sight of the mate mark, still red and raised against her pale skin. God's blood, he breathed. He marked you. The Alpha King marked a human. Please. His backhand sent her sprawling, stars exploding across her vision. You're not human at all, are you? You're one of them, a wolf hiding among us. She tried to crawl away, but his boot connected with her ribs, the same ones already cracked from her failed transformation. She screamed, the sound more wolf than human. Take her. Aldrich commanded his guards. The capital will want to see this, the Alpha King's human mate. What better way to draw him out of hiding? As rough hands hauled her upright, Lyra felt the mate bond blaze with sudden fury. Somewhere, miles away, Kale had felt her pain. The Alpha King was coming, and he was bringing war with him. The iron cage was a cruel irony. The same one Kale had been imprisoned in now held Lyra in Ravenshallow's square. Lord Aldrich had made sure the entire town was present for the spectacle, summoning them with bell and decree. Behold, Aldrich announced, circling the cage like a predator, the wolf in sheep's clothing, who lived among you for 8 years. Lyra kept her head high, despite the pain radiating from her broken ribs. The crowd she'd healed, helped, and protected stared at her with expressions ranging from shock to betrayal. Some looked sympathetic but didn't dare show it openly. She bears the mark of the Alpha King, Aldrich continued, yanking her hair aside to display the bite. She's been conspiring with our enemies, hiding her true nature while learning our weaknesses. That's not true. The voice came from the crowd, young Tam, the boy whose sister she'd saved just yesterday. She's helped everyone here. His mother quickly pulled him back, but others began murmuring. How many of them owed their lives to her healing? How many children had she saved from fever? Silence, Aldrich commanded. Her kindness was a deception. Wolves are masters of manipulation. Then what am I? The deep voice resonated from the forest's edge, and every head turned. Kale stood there, but not as they'd seen him before. Now he was clearly, undeniably royal, dressed in the black and silver of the Alpha King, flanked by a dozen warriors in wolf form. The crowd scrambled backward, guards drew swords, and Aldrich's face went white. Powers. Your Majesty, Aldrich said, attempting a mocking bow. Come to retrieve your spy? I've come for my mate, Kale said, moving forward with lethal grace. The one you've tortured and caged, despite her innocence. Innocence? Aldrich laughed, though fear crept into his voice. She's harbored a fugitive, hidden her nature, and bears your mark. By human law. By human law, she's done nothing but heal your people for 8 years. Kale's eyes flashed gold. Never once harming anyone, never once revealing what she was, despite living in constant pain from a curse placed on her as a child. Lies, truth. A new voice joined them, Theron, the beta, emerging from the opposite side of the square with more wolves. We've been investigating. The curse on her was cast by the Moonwhisper Pack's elder, Henrik, when she was 5. He feared her potential power and convinced her family she was defective. Lyra's breath caught. Henrik? But he said. He lied, Kale said, his voice gentling as he addressed her. You were born to be an alpha female, Lyra, Persend. Your power threatened his authority, so he bound your wolf before it could fully manifest. The crowd was murmuring louder now. Even some of Aldrich's guards looked uncertain. Enough. Aldrich drew his sword silver-edged and deadly. Take them both. What happened next would be whispered about for generations. Lyra felt the attack coming through. The mate bond felt Aldrich's intent to kill Kale, while he was distracted trying to free her. Without thinking, she reached for power she shouldn't have. Power that had been locked away for 18 years. The curse, weakened by weeks of Kale's mark eating at it, finally shattered. The transformation was instant, violent, and complete. One moment she was human, the next, a massive white wolf stood where the cage had been, its bars bent and broken by the force of her change. Her fur gleamed like moonlight, and her eyes were pure gold, the mark of an alpha. She leaped over the crowd, landing between Aldrich and Kale, just as the silver blade descended. Her jaws caught the sword, and with a savage twist of her head, she snapped it in half. Aldrich stumbled backward, true terror on his face for the first time. Impossible. You couldn't shift. Lyra stalked forward, her lips pulled back in a snarl that revealed teeth as long as a man's fingers. Behind her, she felt Kale's pride and relief flooding through their bond. Stand down, Aldrich, Kale commanded. You've lost. The human crown will hear of your unauthorized attacks on wolf nobility. The peace treaty, pros. The treaty is already broken, Aldrich screamed. You think I acted alone? The capital knows everything. They're coming with silver weapons and mountain ash. Every wolf in this territory will burn. The square erupted in panic. Humans fled, wolves growled, and in the chaos, Aldrich pulled a hidden dagger, lunging not for Kale but for young Tam, who defended Lyra. Pass. She moved faster than thought, her jaws closing around Aldrich's wrist with a crack of breaking bone. The dagger fell, and Aldrich collapsed, screaming. Enough. Kale's voice echoed in her mind through their bond. He's down. You've won. Lyra released Aldrich and stepped back, her form shimmering as she tried to shift back to human. But nothing happened. The wolf held firm, and panic flared through her. I can't change back, she told Kale through the bond. I don't know how. Kale moved to her side, his hand burying in her fur. 18 years of suppression, he murmured. Your wolf won't let go easily. The journey to the northern citadel took 3 days, during which Lyra remained trapped in wolf form. She ran alongside Kale's midnight black wolf, their bond humming with shared concern and unspoken fears. The citadel rose from the mountains, like something from legend. White stone towers reaching toward the sky, bridges spanning impossible chasms, and everywhere the banner of the Alpha King flew in the cold mountain wind. When they entered the great hall, Lyra expected welcome. Instead, she found judgment. The pack elders stood in a semicircle, their expressions ranging from disapproval to outright hostility. At their center stood Henrik, the very elder who had cursed her, who had traveled from the Moon Whisper Pack territories when he'd heard about the mating. So, Henrik said, his voice carrying the weight of false concern, the cursed child returns. Kale shifted to human form, authority radiating from every line of his body. Elder Henrik, explain your presence in my citadel. I came as soon as I heard, Your Majesty, Caniv, my former pack member, the one I tried to protect you all from. She's bewitched you with a false mate bond. False? Kale's voice dropped dangerously. She cannot be your true mate. She's defective, unable to control her wolf. Look at her trapped in that form like the beast she truly is. Lyra snarled, but Henrik continued, addressing the assembled pack. I cursed her for the safety of all. She was born wrong, too much power, no control. She would have become feral, a danger to everyone around her. Liar. Theron stepped forward, holding a leather journal. We found this in your abandoned den. Your own writings, Henrik. You detail how you feared a female alpha would challenge traditions, would upset the balance of power you'd built. Henrik's composure cracked. You don't understand. Female alphas are unnatural. They bring chaos, destruction. They bring change, Kale interrupted, which terrifies old wolves who cling to power. She can't even shift back. She'll be trapped forever, going slowly mad until you have to put her down like the rabid creature she... His words cut off as Lyra lunged, but not at him. She barreled past, knocking Kale aside as a silver arrow whistled through where he'd been standing. Assassins poured from the shadows, wolves bearing the mark of the Human Crown's special forces. They'd followed them here, using Henrik as a distraction. The battle was swift and brutal. Lyra fought with a fury she didn't know she possessed, her massive white form tearing through attackers who tried to reach Kale. She felt their bond blazing, his strength feeding hers, her rage fueling his. When the last assassin fell, she stood panting over their bodies, blood not her own, staining her white fur red. The pack stared at her in awe and not a little fear. She protected the king, someone whispered. She fought like a berserker, another added. Like a true alpha, Theron said loudly, making sure all heard. But Henrik wasn't finished. From his robes, he pulled a vial of something that gleamed sickly green. If I cannot have my order, then neither shall you have your mate. He threw it at Lyra, the liquid splashing across her muzzle and chest. The effect was immediate. Burning agony that sent her collapsing, her form convulsing as the poison ate at her from inside and out. Wolfsbane concentrate. Henrik laughed. 10 times the normal strength. Even an alpha can't. His words ended in a gurgle as Kale tore his throat out, the Alpha King's control finally snapping. But the damage was done. Lyra writhed on the stone floor, her breathing becoming labored. Can't breathe. Kale shifted back, pulling her massive head into his lap. Hold on, just hold on. The poison is too strong. one of the healers said, rushing forward. Quote, "We need the ancient remedies, but they require a human form, another finished. She needs to shift back, or she'll die." "She can't," Kale's voice broke. "The curse broke wrong. She's trapped." Lyra felt herself fading, the poison spreading like ice through her veins. Through their bond, she felt Kale's desperation, his determination, and underneath it all, the words he'd spoken in the ancient language during his fever. Suddenly, she understood them. "You called me your eternal mate," she whispered through the bond. "Your other half, your soul's mirror." "Yes," his mental voice was thick with tears. "But I was fevered. I had no right. You had every right. And I answer." With the last of her strength, she pressed her muzzle to his throat, breathing the words against his skin in the ancient tongue she shouldn't know, but somehow did. "I accept the bond. I accept you. My eternal mate. My other half. My soul's mirror." Light exploded through the hall, not gold this time, but pure white, tinged with silver at the edges. The mate bond, only partially formed before, snapped into place with an almost audible click. And in that moment of perfect connection, Lyra felt Kale's knowledge flow into her, including how to shift. The transformation back to human form was agony incarnate. Every bone broke and reformed, every muscle tore and reknit, 18 years of suppressed changes happening in reverse within moments. When it was over, Lyra lay naked and gasping on the cold stone, her skin still bearing traces of the poisoned wolfsbane burns. "Get the healers!" Kale roared, wrapping her in his cloak. Now, the pack's medical team swarmed around them, but Lyra barely noticed. She was lost in the sensation of being human, again smaller, weaker, but somehow more herself. Through the completed mate bond, she could feel everything Kyle felt: his terror, his rage at Henrik, his desperate love that threatened to overwhelm them both. "The poison's still in her system," the head healer announced gravely. "It's attacking her ability to shift. If we can't purge it completely, she'll be trapped in human form forever." Another finished. The opposite of her original curse. "No." Kale's voice was steel. "There has to be another way." "There is." An ancient voice spoke from the doorway. The oldest of the pack elders, a woman so old her white hair had returned to black, entered, leaning on a gnarled staff. "But the price is steep." "What?" "Name it." "Not yours to pay, young king." Her clouded eyes fixed on Lyra with uncanny accuracy. "The cursed child must choose. Die slowly from the poison, live trapped in human form, or undergo the trial of the moon." "That's a myth," Theron protested. "No one has attempted it in 300 years." "Because no one has survived it in 400, the crone replied. "It requires walking between forms, being both wolf and human simultaneously, until the moon herself chooses which you shall remain." Lyra struggled to sit up, Kale's arms supporting her. "What happens if the moon doesn't choose?" "Then you remain caught between. Neither human nor wolf, but something else. Something that usually goes mad from the constant shifting." Through the bond, she felt Kale's immediate refusal forming, but she pressed her hand to his chest. "It's my choice, Lyra. You gave me 18 years of freedom when you shattered my curse. Even if that's all I get, it's more than I ever hoped for." She looked at the ancient elder. "When?" "Tonight. The moon is full, and she's already tasted your blood through the wolfsbane. She'll be watching." The next hours passed in preparation. Lyra was bathed in sacred oils, dressed in white robes that would burn away during the trial, and marked with symbols in woad and ash. Through it all, Kale never left her side, their hands clasped as if he could anchor her to life through touch alone. "There's something else," he said as moonrise approached. "The words I spoke during the fever, you understood them at the end." "Yes, that means you're not just an alpha, you're an ancient one of the original bloodlines. That's why Henrik feared you. Your power, fully realized, would eclipse his entire generation." Lyra stared at him. "But my parents were ordinary wolves." "Your mother was. Your father." Kale hesitated. "The investigation revealed he was killed when you were 3. Killed by Henrik, who claimed it was a challenge gone wrong. It The implications crashed over her. Henrik had murdered her father, cursed her, convinced her mother she was defective, all to prevent an ancient alpha female from manifesting. "I'll kill him," she growled, feeling her wolf stir despite the poison. "He's already dead, but revenge won't save you tonight." Kale cupped her face. "You need to focus on surviving, on coming back to me. And if I don't, if I come back as something else, then I'll love that something else until the stars burn cold." The ritual ground was a circle of standing stones older than the citadel itself. The pack gathered outside the circle they couldn't enter, couldn't help. This was between Lyra and the moon alone. She stood in the center, feeling the moonlight hit her skin like physical weight. The poison in her blood responded, burning cold while her wolf nature burned hot. The two forces met in her chest, and she screamed as the first transformation hit. But this wasn't like before. She didn't fully become wolf or fully return to human. She hung suspended between forms, fur and skin, fang and tooth, claw and nail. Her bones couldn't decide their shape, constantly breaking and reforming. "Let go," a voice whispered, not Kale's, not her own. The moon herself, ancient and terrible. "Choose your nature, or let me choose for you." "I can't choose." Lyra gasped through a muzzle that was half formed. "I'm both. I've always been both." "Then be both and be destroyed by the duality." Pain. The pain intensified, and Lyra felt her sanity beginning to fracture. Through the mate bond, she could feel Kale fighting not to intervene, his wolf howling for her agony. "Wait." The thought came like lightning. "I don't have to choose." She thought of her life healing humans as a hidden wolf, protecting wolves while wearing human skin. She'd never been one or the other. She'd always been both, and that wasn't weakness. It was strength. Lyra floated in a space between spaces, neither the ritual ground nor anywhere else she recognized. Moonlight formed solid paths beneath her feet, and stars wheeled overhead in patterns that spoke of ancient magic. "You're dying." Kale's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. She turned to find him standing there, not physically, but in spirit, his soul drawn into this liminal space through their mate bond. "How are you here?" "The same way you are, Pasani. Between life and death, between forms." He moved closer, and she saw he was translucent, flickering between his human and wolf shapes. "The trial is killing you, Lyra. I can feel it." "I know." She looked down at herself, seeing her own form wavering, dissolving at the edges. "But I finally understand something. The curse, the trial, even our bond, they're all about the same thing." "What?" "Balance. I've spent my whole life being forced to be one thing. First human, then wolf, now being told to choose. But that's not who I am." The moon's voice resonated through the space, ancient and amused. "Then who are you, child of two natures?" "I'm both," Lyra said firmly. "Human enough to heal with herbs and kindness, wolf enough to protect with fang and fury. I'm the bridge between worlds, and I refuse to choose one over the other. That path leads to madness. No mind can hold two natures equally." "Alone, no," Lyra agreed. "But I'm not alone." She reached for Kale, their hands meeting in this space between spaces. The moment they touched, she felt their mate bond blaze to life, not just connecting them, but completing them. "You balance me," she whispered, understanding flooding through her. "Your wolf's strength supports my human compassion. My human wisdom tempers your wolf's rage." "Together," Kale said, his eyes widening with the same realization. The moon laughed, a sound like silver bells and hunting horns. "Clever children, you've found the answer none before you saw." The trial was never about choosing one nature, processed. It was about finding someone who could help you balance both, Lyra finished, power. But knowledge and application are different things. Can you truly hold both natures, even with your mate's support? Only one way to find out, pull. Lyra pulled Kyle closer, their foreheads touching. Through their bond, she felt his wolf reach for hers, felt his human mind touch her human thoughts. They didn't merge. They remained distinct but connected, like two rivers running parallel, occasionally mixing waters but maintaining their own courses. "Show me," she whispered to him. "Show me how you balance it." Images flooded her mind. Kale's memories of learning control, of accepting both sides of his nature. But more than technique, she felt his emotional journey. The struggle, the acceptance, the peace that came with integration. "I see," the moon mused. "You would share the burden, 1.5 natures each, rather than two in one body." "We're mates," Kale said simply. "We share everything. Then return, children of duality. But know this, the bond you're forging goes deeper than mate marks. You're becoming something new, something that hasn't existed since the first wolves walked beside the first humans." The silvery space began to dissolve, but before it did completely, Lyra heard the moon whisper one last thing. "The ancient prophecy speaks of the bridge wolves, those who would unite the two worlds. Perhaps it begins with you." She gasped back to consciousness in the ritual circle, but something was fundamentally different. She was human, fully human, but she could feel her wolf there too, not trapped or struggling, but resting just beneath her skin, ready to emerge when called. "Lyra." Kale crushed her against him, and she felt his relief like a physical thing. She pulled back to look at him and gasped. His eyes were different, still silver, but with gold rings around the pupils. Looking at her hands, she saw her own skin bore faint marks like moonlight tattoos, beautiful and otherworldly. "The trial," the ancient elder breathed. "You didn't just survive it, you transformed it." "What are we?" Lyra asked. "Something new," the crone replied, her blind eyes seeing more than anyone else. "The first of your kind in 1,000 years. Bridge wolves. Beings who exist fully in both forms simultaneously." Through the bond, Lyra felt Kale's wonder matching her own. They'd entered the trial as wolf and cursed human. They'd emerged as something unprecedented, living bridges between two worlds that had been separated for far too long. The great hall fell silent as Lyra stood before the assembled pack, no longer the frightened healer who'd arrived days ago. The moonlight markings on her skin glowed faintly, and beside her, Kale bore matching marks, the physical sign of what they'd become. "The human forces are mobilizing," Theron reported. "Our scouts report 5,000 soldiers, all armed with silver and wolfsbane. They'll reach us by tomorrow's dawn." "Let them come," one elder snarled. "We'll tear them apart." "And prove we're the monsters they claim?" Lyra stepped forward, surprising herself with her own authority. "That's exactly what they want, an excuse to exterminate all wolves." "What would you have us do, girl?" Another elder, one who'd been silent during Henrik's confrontation, spoke with barely contained hostility. "You've been among us for days. You don't understand our ways." "I understand both ways," Lyra replied. Human and wolf, and I know both sides are being manipulated. She moved to the strategic map spread across the war table. Lord Aldrich said the capital knew about Kale's capture. But how? He was taken by supposed bandits, sold at a local auction. That's not how royal protocols work. Someone in the human court wanted the Alpha King vulnerable. Kale agreed, following her reasoning. Just as Henrik wanted to prevent a female alpha from manifesting. They're working together, Theron breathed. Humans and wolves, conspiring to keep the conflict alive. But why? An elder asked. Because peace would mean change, Lyra said. No more human nobles profiting from wolf hunts. No more wolf elders maintaining power through isolation and tradition. Someone benefits from keeping us at each other's throats. A young wolf, barely past his first shift, raised his hand tentatively. But even if that's true, the army is still coming. We have to defend ourselves. Lyra looked at Kale, feeling his thoughts through their bond. The same wild idea had occurred to them both. What if we don't? She said. The hall erupted in protests, but Kale raised his hand for silence. Explain. The bridge wolf transformation. We can exist in both forms simultaneously. What if that's not just physical? What if we can bridge more than just our natures? She turned to address the pack. Tomorrow, when the human army arrives, what if they don't find wolves ready for battle? What if they find something impossible, wolves and humans working together, healing together, building something new? They'll slaughter us, an elder protested. Some will try, Lyra agreed. But others, there are good people in that army. Soldiers who've seen too much death, who join to protect their families, not commit genocide. If we give them another option. It's insane, Theron said, but he was smiling. Completely insane, and it might just work. I need volunteers, Lyra announced. Wolves willing to stay in human form, to stand with me when the army arrives, to show them we're not monsters. And if they attack anyway? The skeptical elder demanded. Then we defend ourselves, but we try peace first. One by one, hands rose. Young wolves mostly, but some older ones too. Wolves who'd lost too much to endless conflict, who were willing to try something unprecedented. I'll need humans too, Lyra continued. People from Ravenshallow who know me, who I've healed, they need to see their own kind among us. I can help with that, a familiar voice said from the doorway. Lyra spun to see young Tam, along with his mother and sister. Behind them, impossibly, stood a dozen more humans from Ravenshallow. How did you power? We followed, Tam's mother said simply. After what happened in the square, after seeing what Lord Aldrich really was. We couldn't let you face this alone. You saved our children, healer Lyra. Human or wolf, your family. Tears burned Lyra's eyes. Through the bond, she felt Kale's amazement and pride. This is unprecedented, the ancient elder murmured. Humans and wolves, choosing to stand together. The prophecy, another elder whispered. The bridge wolves who would unite the sundered worlds. Lyra looked at the assembled crowd, wolf and human, ancient and young, all united by something more powerful than fear or tradition. Then let's make history, she said. Tomorrow, we show both sides that there's another way, that we can choose connection over conflict, understanding over fear. And, FN. And if we fail? Theron asked quietly. Then we fail trying to build something better, Kale said, taking Lyra's hand. Rather than succeeding at destroying each other. The night was spent in frantic preparation. Wolves learning to hold human form under stress. Humans learning not to fear wolf eyes in human faces. Lyra worked tirelessly, using her unique nature to help others find balance. As dawn approached, she stood on the citadel's highest tower, looking out at the approaching army. Thousands of torches, like a river of fire flowing toward them. "Ready?" Kale asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "No," she admitted, "but that's not stopping me." Through their bond, she felt his love, his faith, his absolute certainty that whatever happened, they'd face it together. "Then let's go change the world, my bridge wolf." The human army crested the hill at dawn, 5,000 strong, their silver weapons gleaming in the morning light. At their head rode General Marcus Vaughan, a man known for his tactical brilliance and his hatred of wolves. But what he found at the citadel's gates stopped him cold. Humans and wolves stood together, not in battle formation, but in integrated groups. Children played, human and wolf pups chasing each other. Elderly humans sat with ancient wolves, sharing morning tea. At the very front stood Lyra and Kale, their joined hands glowing faintly with moonlight markings. "What sorcery is this?" General Vaughn demanded. "Not sorcery." Lyra stepped forward. "Truth. The war you've come to fight is built on lies, General." "Lies? You harbor monsters who would tear out our throats." "Like Lord Aldrich tore out the throats of innocents?" Tam's mother called out. "We saw who the real monster was in Ravenshallow Square." Murmurs ran through the human ranks. Many had heard rumors of Aldrich's actions, his torture of prisoners, his cruelty to his own people. "She's bewitched you," the general insisted. "Then I'm bewitched too," a soldier said, stepping out of formation. "That's my cousin Marie standing with the wolves." Marie, who I thought was dead these 10 years. More soldiers began recognizing faces, humans who disappeared, thought killed by wolves, actually living peacefully in wolf territories after fleeing human cruelty. "This is impossible," General Vaughn said, but his certainty was wavering. "General!" A scout rode up frantically. "We've discovered something in Lord Aldrich's abandoned manor. Documents, correspondence." He was being paid by someone to escalate conflicts, to ensure no peace treaties succeeded. Kale stepped forward. "Just as Elder Henrik was working to prevent unity from our side, someone benefits from our eternal conflict, General. Power. The question is, will you be their tool, or will you help us build something better?" "You're the Alpha King," Vaughn said, his voice uncertain now. "You've killed hundreds of humans." "In defense of my people, yes, just as you've killed hundreds of wolves defending yours. But what if we stopped defending against each other and started defending together?" "Against what?" "Against those who profit from our division. Against the weapons dealers who sell silver to you and steel to us. Against the power-hungry on both sides who need war to maintain control." Lyra felt the moment balanced on a knife's edge. Then she did something unprecedented. She partially shifted, letting her wolf features emerge while maintaining human form. Fur rippled along her arms, her eyes went gold, but she remained standing, speaking, human in shape, if not entirely in nature. "I am both," she declared, her voice carrying to the entire army. "Human and wolf, healer and warrior, and I choose to be a bridge, not a barrier." One by one, other bridge wolves in the crowd followed suit, those who'd learned from her and Kale's example, showing their dual nature without fully transforming. A young soldier in the front ranks suddenly fell to his knees, sobbing. "My brother. They told me wolves killed him, but he's standing right there, with fur and fangs, but still my brother." The two ran toward each other, embracing in the middle of the field between armies. That broke the dam. More recognitions, more reunions. The rigid military formation dissolved into chaos as soldiers found family, friends, loved ones they'd thought lost to wolf attacks. This has to be a trick, General Vaughn said desperately. Then test it, Lyra challenged. Stay for 3 days. Live among us. See the truth with your own eyes. If you still believe we're monsters after that, we won't stop you from leaving. And if we attack now? Kale's eyes flashed. Then you'll face the united strength of wolves and humans defending their home together. Look at your soldiers, General. How many will follow in order to attack their own family? Vaughn looked at his dissolving army, at soldiers embracing supposed enemies, at the impossible peace blooming before his eyes. 3 days, he said finally. You have 3 days to convince me this is real. 3 days turned into a week into a month. The general never ordered an attack. Instead, he became one of the strongest advocates for the Treaty of the Bridge, the first genuine peace agreement between human and wolf territories in 300 years. But that historic morning, as the sun rose fully over the citadel, Lyra stood with Kale, watching their combined peoples mingling freely for the first time in generations. The prophecy was real, the ancient elder said, approaching them. The bridge wolves have returned, and with them, hope for unity. It's just the beginning, Lyra said, feeling the weight of responsibility, but also the joy of possibility. There will be those on both sides who resist change. Then we'll face them together, Kale said, pressing a kiss to her temple. My mate, my bridge wolf, my heart. Through their bond, Lyra felt not just his love, but the love of their growing pack, human and wolf alike, all connected by the choice to see each other as family, rather than enemy. The curse that had once trapped her had become her greatest gift. The mark that should have killed her had instead transformed her into something unprecedented. And the Alpha King, who'd bought her freedom with fevered violence, had become her partner in reshaping the world. As the morning light caught her moonlight markings, making them shimmer like starlight on skin, Lyra smiled. She'd been cursed to never shift, trapped between two worlds. Now she was blessed to bridge them both, and nothing would ever be the same. 6 months later, the healing center stood at the crossroads between human and wolf territories, its architecture a blend of both cultures. Lyra moved through the halls, checking on patients, a human child with pneumonia, a wolf elder with silver poisoning, a bridge wolf, learning to control their dual nature. The council is convening, Kale said, appearing in the doorway of her office. She looked up from her herbs, noting the tension in his shoulders. The resistance? Growing bolder. 3 attacks this week on mixed settlements. The peace was holding, but not without cost. Extremists on both sides worked to destroy what they'd built, human supremacists, who saw wolves as abominations, wolf traditionalists who viewed humans as weak prey. Then we show them strength through unity, Lyra said, standing. Every mixed family that thrives, every bridge wolf who masters their nature, every human and wolf working together, we're proof that their hatred is based on fear, not truth. Kale pulled her into his arms. Have I told you today that you're remarkable? Only twice, she teased. Unacceptable. He kissed her deeply, their bond humming with shared affection. A knock interrupted them. Tam peered around the door, now 12 and training as a healer's apprentice. Master Lyra? There's someone here to see you. Says she's your mother. Lyra froze. She hadn't seen her mother since she was 5, since the day Henrik convinced her family she was cursed. The woman in the waiting room was older, grayer, but unmistakably her mother. When their eyes met, tears flowed freely. My daughter, her mother whispered. They told me you were dead. Henrik said the curse killed you years ago. He lied about everything, Lyra said, embracing her. I know. When news of the bridge wolves reached our territory, when I heard about a healer who could walk between forms, I knew it had to be you, my brave girl who was never broken, just different. That night, Lyra stood on the balcony of their quarters, watching the moon rise. Her mother was settled in a guest room, Tam was studying in the library, and throughout the building, humans and wolves coexisted in unprecedented harmony. Any regrets? Kale asked, joining her. She considered the pain of the curse, the years of hiding, the violence and fear they'd faced. None, she said finally. Every struggle led us here. Her hand moved to her stomach, where new life grew, the first child conceived between bridge wolves, a being who would be born balanced, never knowing the division their parents had overcome. The future won't be easy, Kale said, his hand covering hers. No, Lyra agreed, but it will be worth it. As if in agreement, her wolf stirred within her, content and whole. No longer cursed, no longer trapped, but free to exist in perfect balance with her human side. The Alpha King's mark had broken more than just her curse. It had broken the barriers between worlds, creating something entirely new. And this was only the beginning.